Hello, thank you for joining us again and welcome to this, the latest in our At Home With series. My name's Owen Cottrell, I'm one of the trustees of State of Mind Sport and we're producing this series of films during the coronavirus lockdown period of 2020. Each week we speak to another member of our presenting team from their home, or in this case we've mixed it up a little this week and we're speaking to the latest addition to our board of trustees. And that very special person is Angela Powers. Angela, thank you so much for joining us today. First and foremost, how are you doing? How is lockdown treating you?
Oh, well, hello. To be fair, it's easy for me. I used to work, as we'll talk about later, I'm sure, in a sport where we had a closed season. So by the time it got to October and the end of the grand final, if I wasn't doing like a review of the season, then I'd have all my holidays within that period. So it just feels like normal lockdown to me. In the winter, I used to go into hibernating, and now I'm hibernating again, but keeping myself busy.
Good to hear. Right, so Angela, let's kick off with your broadcast career and the thing that most people will know you for. Tell me about young Angela. What was it that you aspired to be growing up, and what was it that ultimately led you into a career in journalism?
Well, I've not been asked that for a long, long time. When I was a little girl, I always wanted to be an author. Always wanted to be an author, and that was the word. It wasn't a writer or a novelist. It wanted to be an author, somebody who wrote lots of books and inspired the nation or whatever authors did. Because I was only about 6 or 7 at the time, and I didn't really have a clue. I just knew I liked writing stories and poetry as well. So I used to write lots of poetry too, and I can still remember some. Don't ask me to say them honestly, because they're so embarrassing now, but I was quite proud of them at the time. So I always wanted to write, and I kind of got, as I was about to leave school, guided in the sort of caring sort of professions. So I went to grammar school, Warrington High School for girls, but I didn't particularly enjoy school very much, and I didn't really like academia. So as soon as I could get out with my O-levels, that was it, I was gone. And I was going to go into nursing. But I met a woman who was a journalist at the Warrington Guardian, and I thought, oh wow, she's just amazing. I would love to do that because I'd be good at this and I'd be good at that, and I could do all of this. And I was already volunteering in the community to write for a community newsletter. And she said, I'll tell you what, let's sit down and write a spec letter together so we can send it off to the local paper just to show what you can do and see if anybody gives you a go. And they did. I ended up at the Warrington Guardian in the early 80s. It might have been about 84, 85, 86 maybe, a bit later on than that. Got the job from the spec letter and never really looked back. I absolutely loved writing stories for a living. It was something that I really enjoyed and look back on very, very fondly.
Lovely stuff. So you've obviously had a long journalistic career. What then sort of led on to the screen media and got you into roles at the BBC, and then following on from that, we had a question actually from Claire Austin Dyson on Facebook asked, how did you eventually land the Sky Sports Rugby League role?
When I was at the Warrington Guardian, I ended up going to work as the chief reporter at the Knutsford Guardian, which I absolutely loved doing that. I think I was only about 21 at the time, and standing in for the editor as well. Every time he was off, Ken. So I would do bits like that with quite a well established team at Knutsford as well, and I loved the fact that I could design pages, get the stories in, edit, sub, all that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed doing that. But one day, one of the other journalists, one of the writers in the paper, brought in the Guardian, not the Warrington Guardian, Big Guardian. We call it the Big Guardian. And it had an advertisement for a broadcast journalist, what they called a regional journalist at that point at the BBC. Being 21 years old, I thought, what harm can it be, just to put an application in? So I put my application in, and I was very lucky to get an interview. And there was me and a woman you might have heard of called Christine Talbot, who's the presenter over at Calendar, still presenting there. She got the job, but I got what they called at the time an also suitable. So at that point I thought, right, that's good. I'll take that as a big sort of like tick in the box for my career. So I ended up, did a couple of months at the Old Evening Chronicle, being a sub-editor, and went back to the Northwich Guardian as deputy editor. But then an option came up for a job at the BBC, and because I'd already been interviewed, they gave me the job. So that's how I ended up in broadcasting. Felt completely out of my depth, obviously. A girl from Council Estate in Alford in Warrington, thinking, oh my gosh, here I am at the BBC. How did I get here? Wow. But that was 8 of the happiest years of my life. But parallel to that, there was rugby league. And rugby league was the thing I loved. We started going to watch, me and my then partner, in 1990 regularly, because we'd go every now and again. But when Warrington got to the Challenge Cup final in 1990, we decided to go down there, and that was it. I was smitten. So it's quite a few years back now, isn't it, Owen? I think 30 years back. So while I was at the BBC, I was always putting my hand up saying, we should be doing more rugby league, we should be doing more rugby league. And every now and again, I'd end up on a job where Sky would be doing their outside broadcasts. And one day I just sort of plucked up the courage and knocked on the door of Winnebago at the time. And the executive producer, he was then, Neville Smith, opened the door. And I just introduced myself. And one thing leads to another, and before you know it, just put your foot in the door, literally. And I ended up getting the job at Sky in 1998, and some wonderful years at Sky. Really enjoyed those first few years where my job was to go out reporting, because what I wanted to do was to tell the world how amazing this sport was. And it wasn't so much just about what you saw on the pitch, it was about the people. And that's what stories are, it's what news is, it's what writing is, it's about people. And I wanted to show the world how amazing these rugby players were. They were so brave, they were so talented, but also they had these personalities that I really wanted to showcase to the world. So for me, those first few years where you went to their houses or to training or whatever and got to tell the stories of these personalities, that was the best time ever. It was like not working for a living, Owen. You must know what that's like.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So that must have been an amazing moment for you, I guess, your two sort of parallel passions, your love for reporting and for journalism, and your love for rugby league, being able to come together and combine into a role.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the two things that you really, really love doing just coming together, and you get paid for it? It was absolutely everything that I could have wanted came together. It was hard work those first couple of years, and people who watched Sky for a long time might remember we had a programme, we had Boots and All, then we went to a programme called World of Rugby League, I think it was, or World of Super League, and that was 2 hours long on a Wednesday. And there's me and Bill Arthur who were the reporters, and we had an awful lot of space to fill. So you imagine how many times we'd had to go reporting, editing, putting together features. Then we'd have, you won't remember this, we used to have on a Thursday, I think it was, the Academy. We used to do that live as well. Then we do Friday and Sunday, I think it was at the time, we do live games of Rugby League with Super League, obviously, as it was then. So we had lots of space to fill with our features. We were out and about all of the time. It was really exhausting, but it was such fun. It really was.
Fantastic. So got a couple of questions, well, actually loads of questions that came in on social media. I'm going to try my best to sort of get through them all during this. One that came in from Phil Vivers, one of our colleagues at State of Mind. He asked, can you remember a most embarrassing moment on live TV? And then just on the same sort of topic, Joe Coy on Twitter asks, what was the funniest moment in a game that you've ever covered?
Loads of embarrassing moments. Live television is awful for that, isn't it? There are times where you can just put your head down for a second, look at your notes and look up, and something's happened and you've not got a clue what it is, and you don't have like live rewind to find out what it was as well. So you're on the microphone saying, what's happened? I've missed that. And they're saying, go and find out what, where? I don't know, just look down at my notes for a second. You just got to be, the seat of your pants all the time when you're in a live situation. There are certain things that people still say, do you remember that time when? And one of them was, I did an interview with Don Manfredi only in recent years, where he did a brilliant game and he was man of the match. And obviously he had that effervescence and that ebullience after the game, and he was full of adrenaline, and he out-popped a little swear word live on air. And I went, oops, we don't really want to be saying that. And then he popped out another little swear word on the back of that one as well. And it was just his reaction as if, I shouldn't have said, and it was one of those where you go, all right, he didn't mean to do that, and it's not really that offensive, but we do have protocols that we have to go to, and we have to make apologies and things like that, so that was quite funny.
Another one of our colleagues, Ian Knott, he asks, he says, great to have you on board, Angela, first of all, but he also asks, do you remember the first player you ever interviewed and also the last player you ever interviewed?
Oh, that's a really good question. The first player I ever interviewed, it would have been a Warrington Rugby League player. It would have been, because it would have been me trying to sell a story of rugby league to the BBC. But I remember all back in those years, in the sort of like early 90s, where I was going out and interviewing Andy Gregory, always a great person to interview. Andy Farrell, obviously, when he was in rugby league. I don't know why, but there's lots of Wigan players sticking out, because I think they were full-time at a time when lots of other rugby league players were part-time at the early years. So they were more accessible. So I think Sean Edwards would have been one of the early ones I interviewed as well, especially just after the Challenge Cup final when I think he played with a broken cheekbone. I remember as well, we did quite a few with our Super League Supermen. We did one with Arthur Beetson, who was a real legend. I think he's one of the immortals of rugby league. And that's one that sticks in my mind, because not long after that he died. And it's when that happens, you go, wow, I had a moment with somebody who is legendary within the game, and that makes me quite a privileged person. So when I look back at some of the people who've played the game really well at the highest level, who've now passed on, that makes me feel really, really privileged. My last interviewee, gosh, who was that?
I think it was Headingley, wasn't it?
It was Headingley, yeah. I think it was. It might have even been either Tony Smith or Richard Agar. I can't remember, or one of the players. Oh, they just blur after a while. There's so many, but I remember feeling that this is my last game. It was very, very emotional. It was really, really emotional, but feeling kind of really happy that the two coaches who you spend a lot of time talking to on live games were two people I admire, respect, get on with quite a lot, and really put on a pedestal. And Tony Smith was one of the best mentors I'd had in the game. He really looked after me, put his arm around my shoulder and gave me lots of advice. And Richard Agar, always a decent, approachable, convivial man. Honest as well, always honest as the day's long with me. I really enjoyed some of our chats with Richard. Very, very clever and knowledgeable about the game as well. And Tony Smith taught me so much as well. So they were two of the last ones I interviewed. Well done for pointing that out to me. Thank you.
And just finally on that side of your career, Alan Johnson, again, one of our trustee colleagues, he asked, was there a consistently entertaining interviewee throughout your career, or if there was someone that you just really looked forward to getting the mic in front of, who would that be?
Oh. There are loads of them, loads that you just go, oh, I'm going to interview him today, and you go, yeah, that'll just lift my spirits. Before Baz and Tess, Barry, I also want to say Barry O'Connor, Barry McDermott and Terry O'Connor, they do meld into one, Baz and Tess. Before they were actually colleagues on Sky, I'd always look forward to going out to interview them, because they, for me, epitomised what a decent pair of rugby league players should be. Brilliant on the pitch, were highly respected, but wow, did they treat you with respect off the pitch as well? Not all players did that. Not all players were that approachable or friendly. Most were, but some weren't. Some I really dreaded going to interview, but I'm not going to talk about those. But Barry and Terry were always two players who you knew that not only would you be able to get good stuff out of them, they were always friendly, always amenable, and always wanted to give you as much as they could. So it was always like, right, what do you want, Ange? What can we do? What can we do for you? Not what can you do for us? So for me, they will always be the epitome of the professional rugby league player. Good on the pitch, great on the pitch, and great off it as well. And I'm so pleased the two of them have got this niche for themselves now, because they are excellent broadcasters.
Superb. So I suppose when you're in the public eye and you're on everyone's screens, that box in the corner of their living room, there can often be a flip side to that. You genuinely seem to have loved your time in broadcasting. We did have a question though on that other side of it from Kay Rollinson on Facebook. She asked, how did you manage to keep focused and stay positive over the years when sometimes you might have been on the receiving end of kind of online abuse or trolls on social media and things like that? She said, for the record, she always thought you did a fantastic job, but she just wondered how you managed to kind of let those sorts of things deflect off you, really.
Yeah, I think anybody who's in the public eye gets it. Anybody, even in rugby league, which is such a small microcosm really of fame, I wouldn't even call it fame or celebrity, but if you're in people's living rooms, you're a target. You are a target. I did get some abuse. I remember once logging into Facebook when I was leaving, and lots of people leaving really lovely messages saying, thanks Angela for everything over the years. And it was really nice to see that, moving on from this job to the next job that I was doing. And then one popped up with this most outrageous lie about me personally, which just made me catch my breath and think, is this what it's all about? You know, you have to put yourself in the public eye and take this sort of rubbish. It's not good for your mental health, and you'll know that, Owen, and State of Mind know that. You know that some of the things that people say and do can have a detrimental effect on people. You take that one thing that is tiny compared to all the positive stuff around, and it sticks with you. I don't miss that at all.
Great answer. I think we'll come on to your more recent career transition shortly, Angela. I just wanted to sort of bring State of Mind into the frame a bit now. So, what first made you aware of the charity? Can you remember when you first heard the State of Mind name mentioned? And a secondary question to that, Claire Austin Dyson on Facebook asked, what made you want to become part of the State of Mind family more recently and join as a trustee?
State of Mind, it was around the tragic death of Terry Newton. Because I knew Phil very, very vaguely from school, believe it or not. We go back a long, long way, sort of like through mutual friends. So I knew that when this happened with Terry, God bless him, and then State of Mind started to sort of like grow, if you like, started to bloom and find its role, and because of that catalyst, I knew that I could trust it as an organisation, and I knew that it could only do good things. And can I show you something? I've got it out here as well.
Yeah.
So we've been involved with State of Mind for quite a while, and we won an award. Do you remember? We won an award.
Mind Media Award, is that right?
Yeah, Mind Media Award for State of Mind and Sky Sports. We were winner of the entertainment section for some of the work that we did working together. I wish we could have done more of it, but I think Sky tried to, as much as possible, support the work of State of Mind. I've had people in my life as well who've I didn't think I was going to talk about this.
It's all right. You don't need to.
"20 years ago this year, my sister took her own life, and the effect on our family was devastating, absolutely devastating. And still now, as you can tell, it never ever goes away from you. So you think about what those people are going through themselves, but sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know. And if you'd known, you could have done something about it. So you think about that, and then you realise the ripples that sends out to their friends, family, and everybody, and how it affects you for the rest of your life. And it's horrific. There's no pain like it. I can imagine, I don't even like to imagine what it must be like for my mum and my dad to have not just lost my sister, they lost their child, you know, even though she was about 29 at the time. So I know what you do, or we do now as State of Mind. I know the good it does. I know how it can save lives. Sadly, we can't save every life, but that support is just absolutely phenomenal. And not just for people in that kind of position where they feel there's nothing left to live for, but those who feel that life offers them nothing, you know, just being able to reach out, especially in the world of sport when you're on such a pedestal. I was talking a bit about the social media trolls, you know, to be on a pedestal as a superstar and then get this kind of, oh, you're rubbish, you're rubbish, you don't know what you're doing, you can't catch a ball, you can't do that. That plays with your mind so much. How these men and women have the fortitude and the strength to be able to deal with that mentally. And that's why State of Mind matters to me a lot in the world of sport specifically, but just in general life, you know. We all need, every now and again, a leg up, and State of Mind does more than that. I don't know whether I can bring anything to State of Mind, and I think I've said that to you before. All I can do is try to help out as much as I can, but I realise that once I'd put rugby league to one side and sorted out my next career path, I realised that I didn't want to push it completely to one side and have it out of my life altogether. And what better way to keep the sport in my life than to do something like this? I hope that answers the question. I went off on a tangent then.
No, it really does. Thank you, and thanks for your honesty. I think that, you know, from everyone at the charity, you know, you absolutely offer a huge amount to us, and I think to have someone like you who's been in and around the game for so long and helped actually, you know, take down barriers within the game and change it for the better, I think is huge. You're a huge asset to the charity, and I think, you know, where there's, as there are with a lot of people on the team, there's a personal drive behind it as well, and there's that very personal connection to the cause, I suppose. So no, thank you. I think one other question we did have in, and I wanted to try and find time to get it in there, was from Emma Seal on Twitter, and she asks, in all your years in rugby league, Angela, what in your opinion have been the most positive or beneficial changes to have happened in the sport? And I'd like to obviously talk about the role of women in rugby league as well, which may well be part of your answer.
Yeah, I was always aware of the role that women had in rugby league, even from when I first started to go and watch. Because when I was at the BBC, I was the sports producer for a short while on North West Tonight for about 2-3 years. And I'd go to lots of different sport. It was such a privilege to do that job, and I loved doing it. But every now and again, I'd end up in a football ground, and that feeling of watching a match with a lot of men, very vociferous in their sort of support of their teams, it was quite. I can still think of some occasions where it was quite an intimidating situation. I went to a Blackpool versus Burnley game once, and I thought, I don't want to go to another football match and stand on the terraces. It felt, for me as a woman, I didn't feel it was the place I wanted to be. Then compared and contrasted that with rugby league, it was like light and day, oranges and apples. There was just no comparison really in terms of the way I felt on the terraces. But even deeper than that, all behind the scenes in rugby league clubs, there were always women there who did a really important job. Very rarely was it the top job, because there's still that goes on in the game, but a job that would keep the businesses going, from the volunteers to the people who did the catering. There was a woman called Eileen Fisher, who she trained me when I was on a youth training scheme years and years ago, but she was involved in Warrington Wolves for a long time. She raised an awful lot of money for that club, and I remember looking at her and thinking, wow, without people like Eileen, these clubs won't be able to get to where they are now. You know, they might be getting money coming in from Super League and from Sky or whatever, but it's the women who are the linchpins, if you like, of these clubs that do these jobs, and they do it voluntarily as well. Alex Chicken is another person I can think of at Warrington who does these things voluntarily, and every club has got them. Every club has them. And I decided, I think it was about 2013, why don't we do something to celebrate that, which is why I started Her Rugby League. And we had a great few years where we'd go out and just spread the word of the women, not the women's game as such, but rugby league for women. And the women's game was part of that. I had to park that to one side when I moved away from rugby league, because it was time for me to move on my career. But one of the things I'm proudest of is starting Her Rugby League, and hopefully that will continue to grow. We've got some amazing people like Jodie Cunningham, and you mentioned Kay Rollinson as well, people like that who put all of their heart and soul into the game. And you mentioned Jo Phillips, and I was sitting here thinking, you've asked everybody else who inspires you, and I can't think beyond Jo Phillips because of what she does. She just did a marathon around her garden. She's going through some terrible physical times at the moment herself, which she's admitted to on At Home with you as well. Who else should look at to inspire you in the world of rugby league but somebody like that? There are lots of inspirational figures who I will always kind of be grateful that I've been able to be partly mentored by, but also inspired by as well. So there is a lot to look forward to in the future for rugby league.
You've been very proactive in a lot of work you've done for charity generally over your career. In particular, obviously, the Kilimanjaro Challenge in 2015 that you did for the Steve Prescott Foundation. Jo Phillips on Twitter, we both know Jo well, and she's no stranger to a tough challenge. She asks, what's been the toughest challenge you've encountered in life, and how did you get through it?
That was a tough one. Like, I'm looking over there, you might see my eyes just splitting up there, but it's because I've got a big frame on my wall with 2 certificates. Me and my husband, we climbed Kilimanjaro. We set a Guinness World Record of playing the highest game of rugby league on the crater at the very, very top. That was tough, and that did change my life. I don't think I'm the same person now as I was when I was up there. It took me and my husband something like 3 months to talk to each other again once we got down. I think it does something to your brain, the lack of oxygen, but boy, did he get on my nerves for a while after that. We did get married the next year, so it turned out all right in the end. But yeah, that was a real tough challenge. And that was kind of a physical challenge as well as the mental one. That was a different challenge in that I'd made a decision to do something to challenge myself for a charity. I think the biggest challenge was sort of dealing with the situation last year where I decided to move and change career direction. That was the biggest challenge I've ever had in my life, apart from obviously having kids and all of those sorts of things that go with everyday life. But, you know, when it comes to a personal sort of psychological challenge, that was me saying, right, I have to do this. I have to take a leap of faith and it has to happen now.
Let's talk a bit about that career transition then now, because, you know, what was it that made you finally want to hang up the mic and move on? And what is it that you are now doing with your days, Angela?
In about 2000, and when did I start? 2002. So I'd been working with Sky then for 4 years. I was still relatively young back in those days, and I think we all do with our careers. We compartmentalise, and you say, right, I'm doing this now, but where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? And once I'd sort of got that job with Sky and was doing what I loved doing, I wondered where was I going to go next? And I realised that I didn't want to go into management, and I didn't want to necessarily be an executive producer. That wasn't what I wanted to do, because I was doing what I loved at the time. But I knew that I couldn't do it forever. I knew that I couldn't get to this age, which I think I've got a bloody good innings, really, if you think about it. I couldn't get to this age and still really be doing the same job, because it sounds really like almost like a non-feminist thing to say, but there comes a point where it's time for somebody else to take the job on with different ideas, who's probably got a different outlook and who's more enthusiastic. So even back then, I wanted to put things in place for that moment, even though at that point I didn't want to move on at all. So I started to do an Open University degree, because I knew that my other thing that I wanted to do was to teach, because I'm a writer. I wanted to be an author, and I love English. I love language. I just love everything about linguistics. And I thought, right, okay, now that I've got a solid job, I'm in this job in a position where I'm comfortable. Now I can take some time to do some study. So I spent 6 years doing my Open University degree. So I did English and French language with a view to then moving into teaching. Things happen in your life, don't they? So, you know, ended up, I won't go into detail, but in that period, lots of things happened, including the birth of my second child. So it meant that I wasn't in the position to make that move, transition into teaching at that point. But then it got to this point in my life now where, if I'm being really honest, I loved working for Sky, and I loved, as I said, doing all of those wonderful features. And not saying my features were wonderful, but the opportunity to go out doing that job was wonderful and make those features. And talk to people and tell people stories. That started to drop off in the last sort of like 5 or 6 years, because we haven't had Boots and All for a couple of years. So that avenue was closed a bit. And we weren't really doing features on live games anymore, because it was very much driven towards the analysis. So we had our experts on the touchline and in the studio. We would analyse the game. So that was really where live sport was going. That was the demand that Sky Sports were seeing. So all of the sort of peripheral stuff, the features that we were making didn't have an outlet. So what was really my job was disappearing. So I was kind of like pushed into a different role. But it wasn't a role I enjoyed that much. I didn't really enjoy the live side of it, being on the touchline. It didn't really stimulate me the way sitting at home and being creative. And that, for me, I loved that sort of being able to tell stories that way. It wasn't the same on the touchline. And that's when I realised now has to be the time to make that segue. Another, 10 years? 10 years ago I should have done it, but now is the time to do it. So I put things in place, and Sky were just phenomenal. They were amazing, and said, whatever we can do to help you along that journey, yeah, we're here to do. So they were fantastic as well. So I ended up in teaching.
Amazing. So, I mean, that's some, I suppose it's not that vast a transition or too different a life. There's a question that Danny Sculthorpe asked actually on Twitter, was how How have you found that career transition from journalism to teaching?
It's a really good question, because I imagine there are a lot of people out there feeling they're in a position where they don't feel they're using the best of their skills. And it's hard once you've got family and bills and a mortgage and all of those things. It's really difficult to say, what is it I want to do and how do I facilitate that move? It's really difficult to do. I just knew that if I didn't do it now, then I would be unhappy. That transition hasn't been too difficult, as you just alluded to, because there's still an element of delivering to the public, if you like, when you're doing it to a classroom. But I think the best thing I ever did, because from coming home from work, I'm feeling like I haven't been able to do something good and useful and makes me feel fulfilled. All of a sudden, almost overnight, I felt fulfilled again. I felt as though I had something to offer. I was learning and allowed to fail as well, because you're starting again on another path and you're learning from the beginning. So you're allowed to fail. And that was great, because I could make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And people around me were so supportive, saying, yeah, we expect that of you. Try this next time or do that. Make all your mistakes now. And I've made lots of mistakes in my first year of teaching, but I've learned so much as well. And I can't tell you how fulfilling that has been, to be able to feel useful and feel I've got something to offer again, and to feel as though I'm learning again. It's just so it's like being at a banquet and not knowing what to eat first. It's just amazing.
It's a really lovely insight into that whole issue of career transition, especially at the moment when, you know, almost it's been enforced upon a lot of people to reflect on what they do. For some people, it will be a case of enforced job change, sadly, as a result of this situation. But I suppose, you know, the message there is actually, even if you maybe turn it into a positive opportunity to explore that area that you always perhaps wanted to, and scratch that itch over there, you know.
And you know what, as well, it's sometimes when you're forced to do something, when you have to do it, is when you do it and you find, wow, I wish I'd have done it a long time ago. It's out of adversity comes opportunity. And I know that sounds really twee as well, doesn't it? Because I know there are people out there suffering right now. There are people who don't know how they're going to feed their families. And hopefully we'll talk about some of these anxieties that people have with our new series coming up, Ask the Doctor, where we're going to talk to the doctor, and people can ring in and get involved as well, and zoom in with us, where we can talk about how to deal with some of those anxieties. And our message as State of Mind will always be, there are people out there who can help you over it. There are people out there who can, even if it's just about career advice, can, you know, help you in the right direction. Schools are amazing, teachers, colleges, all of those things. You've got so much inside you. If you feel you've got it to give, then take that leap now. Make a phone call, make a connection, and you never know where your life might go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Angela. Listen, we'll bring it to a close. Before we do, though, you mentioned before that you and I are going to work together, and you're going to sort of front and present a new online series for State of Mind, which we're hoping to start in the next week or so, called Ask the Doc. So tell us and the people watching a little bit about the concept behind that.
Well, we realised that we have our presenters on State of Mind, who are amazing people. Joe, Danny, you talked about, Ian, quite a few other people who stand up in front of the camera. Jimmy Gittins, you know, there's so many that I can't reel them all off. But they stand up in front of people and inspire people. They meet people at their lowest ebb and help them. They tell their stories in ways which are just, they grab you there, and they make you understand that there's hope and there's life, and there are people who've been through what you've been through, and they do a great job. And I'm convinced that they've saved lives by doing that. But what we've also got is, on the board of trustees, is some amazing clinicians, people who are experts in their field of mental health. And maybe in this time of coronavirus, where we're all locked down, we all could do with a little bit of help from a doctor who might be able just to say, what you're feeling right now is normal. Here, instead of taking this tablet, here's what I will tell you. This is what I prescribe you do to help you get through this moment. there are other things that people are dealing with. How are they going to feed the kids? What about my mum? She's locked away over there. All of those awful things. And speaking to somebody very close to me yesterday, I realised that there's going to be a point where we all have to come back out again. And for me and you, it might be, yes, freedom. For some people, that's anxiety ridden, you know. But going back to why we're doing Ask the Doctor is, how do you deal with those situations? And that's what we want to do. We want to put you, the viewer, in touch with somebody who knows. So that's what I will be doing. I think hopefully it'll be Alan Johnston who will be our first clinician to stand up and give us his expert advice online. We're just working on a date for that at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, we're working on a date for it. And yeah, for people watching that are interested in that, it will be as opposed to this, which we're pre-recording. We're going to drag Angela kicking and screaming back into the world of live broadcasting, or in this case webcasting, I suppose. And it will be put out live on Zoom, and people will be able to register and feed into the conversation via the chat panel and ask their questions of Alan in the first case, and then in future other clinicians that we have on the team. So very much look forward to working with you on that, Angela, and it's another strand, I think, of the support that State of Mind can offer. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today again. It's been absolutely brilliant to learn a lot more about you than I knew previously, to chat through your career. And yeah, thank you so much for your honesty and your insight. It's been an absolute treat.
Well, it's been mine as well. I've not talked so long for such a long time. I need to go and drink more water or wine, whichever helps best. I don't know.
Well, just before you go, I did have one other question that actually it piqued my interest. Tony Kenny on Twitter said, "Do you remember the wasabi prawns?"
Prawns at Wembley, yeah, I do. You know, sometimes there are moments in your life and they just stick in your memory, and they were the biggest, juiciest prawns I've ever tasted in my life. Tony, I will never forget those prawns, ever.
Cool. Probably hard to get hold of right now, but
yeah.
Angela, thanks.
Can I just say one more thing as well? We just talked about people who inspired us. You know, as well as that, I want to just talk about some friends of mine, and your friendship group is so pivotal, isn't it, at times like this? So it's not necessarily always just about the expert or the people who've been there and done it, but your friends. If you can just pick up the phone and talk to your friends, that makes a massive difference. And I'm so lucky that I've got a really tight bunch of friends who get me through all of this, and I want to say good luck to them in this period, because some of them, when I mentioned Janet, Hayley and Wendy, 3 women who run their own businesses, who at the moment are more worried about their own employees and their clients, who really need help at this time, and they're working really, really hard to do that. So they've got their own problems, but they're there for me as well. So if anybody is listening and they're wondering, I don't want to talk to a doctor, I don't want to talk to anybody, just pick up the phone and talk to a mate, somebody who can just listen to you. You don't even have to talk about what it is you're worrying about. Just hear another voice. If you're lonely and you're on your own, just pick up the phone and talk to your friends, because, you know, they're the best doctors, I think.
Fantastic message to finish on. Thank you again, Angela. It's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to working with you again very soon.
You too, Owen.
All right.
Have a great one.
Cheers now. Bye.